by and large, the majority of them are either contained or burning in inaccessible areas or areas where they're not going to do any or threaten any major properties or populated areas, things like that.
It was so windy on the harbour this morning that as the surfboat crew tried to spread some Christmas cheer at the Stockton Ferry Wharf, the lollies were blown back in their faces. The Stockton boat's usual sweep was replaced by none other than Santa for today's event, and boy did he push his helpers to the limit as they set off across the harbour in a bid to race the ferry to the other side.
We've got the iron oars, they've got the wooden ones.
As hard as they rowed, those wooden oars couldn't match the ferry's big diesel engines, and Santa and his crew were forced to concede.
The Stockton boat crew is a very professional crew. They're the likely winners of this year's championships, and unfortunately we beat them. We had more horsepower than they did. They went well though.
Don't worry, Santa, there's always next year.
An early start proved fruitful for many, with prawns swimming out the doors almost as quickly as they arrived. 3 tonnes of the product has been sold every day since Thursday, along with 1,200 dozen oysters. While the food may have been organised early, the same can't be said for a crowd of present shoppers, making that last-minute dash to the shops.
I just started. I've got one present so far, but I've got a few to go yet.
We've just finished it. We did it all in an hour. We've just come up from Bendigo and we've had about 4 gifts to buy.
I've got to get a fly gun so my brother can shoot flies. And my 2 sons, I don't know what I'm going to get them.
Coffee shops proved a popular resting place, but it really was a day for a cold drink. Santa Claus took time out from packing his sleigh to take some last-minute requests, even from big boys and girls.
Just to have a great Christmas and to get a few CDs, some books and have a good holiday.
And while the beach may have seemed like a good option this morning, by lunchtime the crowds disappeared and the wind picked up, whipping up a bit of a problem for one man, but he was determined not to let it get in his way. Colleen West, NBN News.
With his sleigh heavily laden, Santa left the North Pole for his annual journey, and he must have made it to Australia sometime early this morning. At first light, there were stockings filled from Bangalow to Barraba and Bellingen, and at Belmont, Santa must have delivered everything on the wish list for the young Parker family. With the wrapping ripped for another year, it was down to the serious business of testing Santa's offerings. And nearly as full as Santa's stockings were churches across the country. This morning, religious leaders were preaching a timely message for Australians to practice tolerance and acceptance this festive season. Certainly in a festive, giving mood were 260 volunteers from the Samaritans, putting on a Christmas lunch for 600 disadvantaged people in Newcastle. It's been going 5 years and just keeps getting bigger, giving a gift of food and good company for those who are homeless or just on their own this year. Also, well and truly in the spirit, what could be more Australian on a sunny Christmas afternoon than a family picnic and cricket in the park? Todd Nardi, NBN News.
I think Boeing will get the message when they see that we're still here over Christmas, that we're determined on what we're doing. We're not going anywhere until it's resolved.
It was music to the ears of retailers, with shoppers descending on our region's malls and stores for the traditional post-Christmas spending sprees.
$235 watch for $100, I guess, and I got a $100 skirt for $30.
50%, yeah, 30%, 60%, yeah, it was good.
The big sellers proved to be homewares and women's fashion, while shoes were literally running out the door.
I got swimmers for $30. It was a bargain. It's great.
Reduced from?
90.
At last count in November, overall retail trade was down 0.3% in Australia, but not surprisingly, it seems December will be quite a different story. And annually, retail trade growth fell to 5-year lows in Australia of just 1.2%, meaning many retailers were relying on scenes like this. Some shoppers were spending any extra cash left in their pockets after Christmas, but most were pulling out the plastic. The coffee shops did well too, with many bargain hunters needing time to recover, while others were ready to retire altogether. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A taxi driver of 40 years, Joe Cumberland, knows Scone inside out, and the road to Elliston, Kerry Packer's Upper Hunter Retreat, is a path well travelled by the cabbie.
I used to take parcels and papers and meat and everything up to the homestead when they came up of a weekend.
Joe's among the scores of locals touched by Mr Packer's community spirit, a void that's being felt.
No matter who they were, everyone, you know, got their little bit out of him. Big bits. A very good man.
Although business will continue, it was a relationship established by the media baron when developing Elliston into the plush country estate it is today. Kerry Packer's business dealings with the people of Scone came with a personal touch. Locals who've been here have fond memories. Some were treated to long lunches, others given helicopter rides. A fan of polo, Elliston is a top-grade sporting venue. The horses here fed with produce, purchased from Scone, of course. The vehicles used on the property also hail from the Upper Hunter, almost everything bought locally.
They've been great supporters up here in the Upper Hunter, and it's a very sad day for us all.
Spoke to you just like you and I, and real good chap.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
For husband and wife sailing team Mick and Janine Turton, a day's sailing isn't just a circuit breaker from the daily grind, it's a role reversal from home life.
Yeah, well, on the boat I wear the pants. Yeah, so that's about the change in the dynamic.
On the boat, Michael steers, so I let him call the shots, and I just, I let him call the shots. So he's the boss on the boat, but at home, yeah, definitely. I wear the pants in the family at home.
There was a stiff nor'wester for the start of today's first race. But after the start, the wind died off and swung through all points of the compass, forcing the race to be abandoned. Lake Macquarie couple Nick and Janine are typical of many who sail in the Northbridge senior class. The 14-foot boats carry a crew of 2, no trapeze and no spinnaker, making for ease of sailing and tight racing.
It's a red-hot fleet this year. I think there's probably 10 boats that could, if not win it, pull out a top 3. So the competition's pretty tough. So if we get top 5, we'll be really happy, I think.
The fleet of 47 boats resumes sailing tomorrow.
It's not the kind of scene anyone wants to wake up to. Dozens of bird carcasses littered across the local reserve at Blackwell's Park. In this small area alone, residents collected 13, and they've been found floating in the lake as well. Jo Wick says what started as a couple of sick birds last night has turned into a mass killing, and she believes an intolerant human is to blame.
I think that it's one of these ones that are complaining all the time and said, well, I'm going to do something about it.
For every dead bird we found today, there was another, clearly ill, on the grass or in a tree. Jo says she moved to the area for the wildlife, and anyone who doesn't respect the native fauna is not welcome.
I don't know who or what. It's not a who, it's a what sort of monster could do this sort of thing. They are noisy at times, but why live in an area like this if you can't put up with the wildlife? Move.
The Department of Environment and Conservation is testing a specimen from the area this afternoon to confirm if poisoning was the cause of death. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
When they're out walking the streets, whether it be to go shopping or whether it just be out for an exercise, they just need to remain aware of what's around them.
This is Ali. She's in urgent need of a loving home. Or perhaps these two feline friends may take your fancy. With eyes like these, who could resist? The kittens are among hundreds being dumped at the RSPCA's new facility at Rutherford.
It wouldn't be unusual for us on some days to be handed in 20 plus kittens. Sometimes even mother cats that are heavily pregnant.
Perhaps a pooch is more your preference. These 10-week-old Whippet Jack Russell puppies are sure to please. Many of the animals are unwanted Christmas presents, while irresponsible owners failing to desex their pets are also part of the problem, meaning many of them end up here.
This is a big facility, but it could never cope with every animal that comes in. So unfortunately, the sad fact is, no, we don't find homes for them all.
The RSPCA's next big concern is the New Year's Eve fireworks. They're normally inundated with spooked runaways who have jumped a fence, but hope this year will be different.
It's the high-pitched squeal that the fireworks make, and the dogs don't understand it. You know that it's a firework, but he or she doesn't know what it is.
To ensure your pets don't end up at the pound, they recommend locking your loved ones indoors for the night with plenty of water. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Touching down this morning, it didn't take long before Ned Zelic was back to work. Returning from our European white Christmas, the jet skipper was greeted by traditional summer heat and a session that promised to knock out the last of any festive cheer. But few in the jet squad probably benefited from the break in the A-League more, with a chronic knee problem now well rested.
So I was able to take a few weeks off and get things right, and you know, like I said, I'm looking forward to getting back into the swing of things.
It won't take long, it can't. The team takes on the Central Coast on New Year's Eve. A good result means a lot for both sides. A win for the Jets would keep top two aspirations alive, while it would also give them breathing space away from the ever-dangerous Mariners as they run towards the finals.
We've got our goals at the same time as well, but I'll be happy if we get into the top four because I'm confident that if we do, that we can go on and win it from there.
Ante Milicic is already counting down to the New Year's Eve match. He's racing time to recover from a calf strain suffered just before Christmas, and he'll have scans either tomorrow or Thursday. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
On a day like today, it's easy to see why so many people visit the bay at Christmas. At the boat ramp at Little Beach, it was a case of take a ticket and wait your turn, and with so many making the most of the picture-perfect weather, the Coastal Patrol was working overtime. But as well as keeping tabs on the hundreds of boats that take to the water every day, the Coastal Patrol Command Centre is now batting for the Rural Fire Service as well. The volunteer service has taken over the out-of-hours monitoring relay communications for the RFS Lower Hunter Command.
We, in actual fact, are required, depending on the suburb, to nominate which crews go to it, and then we contact the fire control officer and he tells us if he needs more units to go there.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
New Year's Eve's always been a rough and tumble ride for police, and they're expecting it'll be no different this Saturday night.
Troublemakers will not be tolerated at all. They'll be certainly catered for. There'll be plenty of police numbers to deal with those people, and they won't be tolerated at all.
With no fireworks at Warners Bay, it's envisaged more people will come to Newcastle for its displays. Coupled with the 31st falling on a Saturday, this New Year's Eve has the potential to be the biggest yet.
As many officers as we can will be working. As I said, it is traditionally a big night in Newcastle CBD.
A boost in private security guards as well, double the number on patrol last year, helping police crack down on alcohol-free zones, antisocial and drunken behaviour. For those planning a trip to the city, Wharf Road will be shut to traffic from 3 o'clock. Others will follow at 5. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
The dunes come alive over the festive season, but not everyone treats the shifting mountains with respect. Quad bikes are nearly as common as four-wheel drives on the sand these days, yet because they don't require a licence, many riders don't ever learn how to use them responsibly.
They give you a sense of stability when you hop on them because they have four wheels, but we must understand where we can take the machine can be quite dangerous, and the principles of riding should be understood before we get ourselves into those environments.
Most important is correct safety equipment, a full face helmet, gloves, long pants and sturdy shoes. To get the most stability, quads should only travel up a dune following a completely vertical path.
Danger, not to the left, not to the right. Your machine may become unstable on an angle, roll over and squash you.
The most common cause of drama on the dunes is people travelling too fast, either in their vehicle or on board a bike.
At 40 kilometres an hour, you only have up to 3 metres vision before you go off the edge of a cliff.
With poor visibility, the key is to go slow as sands are shifting all the time. And of course, correct tyre pressure should always be maintained.
And the best rule of thumb is half the tyre, the manufacturer's recommendation. So if you're driving around on the road in 35, you should go half of that as soon as you come onto the sand.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Back amongst the boys today, All-Star Mike Helms will be flying high again this weekend, with Hunter heading to New Zealand for New Year's Eve. With his knee rested and now tested, he's hoping for a big finish to the season, let alone the calendar year.
Pulled up pretty good, no pain, so hopefully it'll be like that for the rest of the season.
He got much more game time than planned for last night. And he had to. If Helms missed the match, he wouldn't be eligible to play on Saturday night, but it proved a blessing in disguise. After a 2-week break due to his knee, the Motown money man got the hit out he needed.
Basically, I was just trying to use it, just to run up and down and get warmed up for New Zealand, get my wind back a little bit.
The Australians, though, had all the moves, overshadowing the world side in a dominant scoring display. Australia's best, pushing past 150 in the 34-point win. And what about the slam competition? Always a crowd favourite, the finalists didn't disappoint either. The best coming from the breakers, Everard Bartlett. He's just one of the Kiwi team waiting for Hunter on New Year's Eve. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Well and truly in the 30s out of the water and 22 degrees in. But humans aren't the only species enjoying those great beach conditions. Tropical currents have delivered a few blue bottles.
If anybody does get stung, go and see the lifeguards and they'll apply ice to the area of the stings.
Those warm currents have also brought sea lice. The microscopic lice often become caught in swimming costumes, but Newcastle Council has not yet recommended nude bathing.
A warm, hot, soapy shower is a good cure for sea lice.
While it was a perfect spot during the midday heat, a 1 metre long wobbegong shark was found in the canoe pool at the Newcastle Baths on this morning's high tide.
The beach cleaners were able to encourage that small shark out of the pool.
With temperatures tipped to reach 40 degrees at the weekend, beachgoers are urged to protect themselves from the sun and drink plenty of water. Todd Nardi, NBN News. The riverbank shapes as a perfect theatre. Just across the water is where the fireworks will be launched. There should be a front row seat for just about everyone at Maitland. With the city's river walk completed just months ago, celebrations have been moved away from Morpeth.
It's our first time at this venue. We want it to be a success. We've done as much as we can. It's now up to the people how good they make it.
The fireworks will be at 9 and midnight. Around 6,000 people are expected, which will please restaurants and pubs in the Riverbank precinct. The River Walk is not an alcohol-free zone, but it will be alcohol-controlled.
We've got the licence sergeant here and he's made it quite clear there will be bag inspections and random searches and no nonsense tolerated.
But Newcastle will still be the Hunters' biggest venue, with anywhere between 15,000 and 20,000 people expected at the foreshore. It's aiming to please everyone: amusement rides, bands, and then the traditional fireworks display, firstly at 9 and again at midnight.
Predominantly family groups come down until about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Then the more of your revellers style crowd for the last couple of hours up until the midnight fireworks fire.
Information about road closures has been delivered to city households. Those details can be found on Newcastle Council's website.
Like everyone, the Newcastle Jets have found it hard to avoid the intense heat of late. Even varying training times hasn't meant missing the sun.
It's been a killer this week. It's been, stinking hot. At 9 o'clock in the morning, it's like 30 degrees.
It'll be similar tomorrow night at Gosford against the Central Coast Mariners, and players have been warned to drink up, with conditions sure to play a major factor.
Preparation is massive this week. It's all about hydration and that, getting the fluids back in, eating right, preparing yourself and that.
After working his way back into the starting team before the break, Kohler remains anchored in the midfield, while Stu Mashalik has been sidelined with a stomach illness. And after a month of no games, they all just want to get back out playing, especially Labano Haliti. Back in the squad, he could yet start, with striker Ante Milicic still nursing a calf muscle strain.
Obviously, I'll take it with my both hands, so yeah, I'm looking forward to just being part of the game tomorrow, part of the team.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The blood-red sky, a telltale sign of summer. Within half an hour, a series of small outbreaks along Editon Road near Muswellbrook late yesterday became the subject of a massive firefighting effort.
First arriving crews did what they could to try and contain it, but with so many fires, it was just near impossible.
2 major fires developed, the RFS declaring a state of emergency as one blaze burned towards Bayswater and the New England Highway.
It got within 3 kilometres of the power station, but it's within a K of their main feeder line from the Mount Arthur mine.
These paddocks near a vineyard and horse stud are now left a smouldering mess. This house survived, if only just. There's no mistake, this fire was the work of arsonists. The roadside is littered with points of origin. Investigators say it will take at least 2 days to examine them all. The police are also involved, warning arsonists of the very serious penalties.
If it gets to the stage where someone's hurt or killed, you're looking at life imprisonment.
5,000 hectares were burnt out in total. The fire's since been contained, but emergency services will remain in place. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
It's a time when partying, playing and enjoying a good drop go hand in hand. But with New Year's Eve celebrations often comes an increase in underage drinking, antisocial behaviour and sexual assaults, behaviour police say they won't accept.
If anyone is involved in antisocial or other criminal behaviour, they will be acted upon very, very swiftly by police.
With no fireworks at Warners Bay, it's envisaged more people will flock to Newcastle. There'll also be a higher police presence, and this year they'll be targeting alcohol use. Underage drinkers may very well find their night ends early, while there's a warning for licensed premises.
The message to licensees is one of understanding and ensure the responsible service of alcohol to patrons.
With thousands of people expected to see in the new year in the city centre, special traffic arrangements will be enforced, with roadblocks to be made around the foreshore area from tomorrow afternoon.
Those road closures, through mainly the assistance of council, are undertaken for the purpose of safe pedestrian traffic.
Colleen West, NBN News. They are holiday scenes no motorist likes to see. Police say a utility towing a caravan south on the Pacific Highway fishtailed and crossed to the wrong side of the road before colliding with a Ford Courier. A third vehicle then hit the caravan, crushing it. Both lanes of the highway were closed and traffic diverted along the Buckets Way. Motorists close to the crash site were left with no choice but to sit and wait as ambulance crews and police managed the scene. 4 people, including a child, were airlifted to the John Hunter Hospital with head injuries and leg fractures, while a 5th person was taken by ambulance to Newcastle. All patients are now in a stable condition. The northbound lane was reopened to traffic at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Meanwhile, there's been a reminder from police to slow down on the roads, with 760 people booked for speeding in the past 7 days, up 238 on last year.
People aren't concentrating on what they're doing, or they're not taking any notice of what they are doing, or they don't care.
Colleen West, NBN News. Lose weight, get fit and stop smoking. They're words you may have heard frequently the past few days. And while they're all perfectly good resolutions, there's a chance they'll top the New Year's wish list again next year.
Bought some patches, but I haven't started using them yet, so...
When are you planning on starting?
When I finish the smokes that I've got.
Call Quitline on 131 848.
While Quitline is providing assistance to smokers across the country, Hunter GPs are also prepared for an increasing number of people wanting to give up. They say setting a date for quitting is the first step, as well as identifying exactly why you want to do it.
Planning how you might actually change your behaviour in the first few weeks of stopping smoking, avoiding places where you would normally smoke, avoiding maybe the shops where you would buy the cigarettes. If it doesn't work this time, have a think about what went wrong and plan again. Plan how you'd avoid that situation next time.
Fitness workers are also preaching a message of patience.
Yeah, I think people like to see results quickly. If they're not happy with the results they're getting in a month or so, they seem to give up. So it's important to keep pushing yourself, change your program around.
A large number of us have already taken the first step towards a healthy 2006, today making exercise a priority. Colleen West, NBN News.
The fire started in bushland, a green belt linking several Newcastle suburbs. One fire heading straight towards Rankin Park, home to Newcastle's John Hunter and private hospitals.
Yesterday, within an hour of this all blowing up, we had a disaster centre set up here within the grounds and all the emergency services functioning from here.
As spot fires began to flare up within the medical precinct, property protection became paramount, and even before the sun had set, firefighters were living a nightmare.
The conditions of the fire and the weather conditions were the worst that we could imagine.
Those hot norwesterly winds unrelenting throughout the afternoon and well into the night. Even when the southerly hit, there were fears the firestorm would change direction towards houses. Some homes were evacuated in one suburb, other people grabbed garden hoses, leaving nothing to chance. Roads in the Lambton-Rankin Park area were closed, blocking access to the hospitals.
But other than that, there was no other real sort of threat to the hospital whatsoever. It was more making sure the safety of the people coming on and off the site.
Today, the area was inspected from the air and water bombing continued, daylight showing just how close the blaze came to a hospital building.
Most of the firefighters have had a very torrid 24 hours and there are some very tired people around at the moment.
Fires in the Newcastle area are within containment lines tonight after what firefighters say was one of the most savage blazes they've ever had to deal with. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Large numbers of police have been patrolling our highways over the past 10 days and they're not impressed with driver behaviour in the Hunter. This driver was doing the right thing, but over 100 people will face court in the new year on drink driving charges. That's 23 more than last year. Almost 1,000 people have been caught speeding in the past 10 days. That's 156 more speeding charges than for the same period last year. Police aren't the only ones having a busy time. Crews aboard the Westpac rescue helicopter have flown 32 missions in the past week alone.
A variety of incidents, from motor vehicle accidents, sporting instances, people suffering from heat exhaustion, through to hospital transfers. And the crews have been just working flat out.
Car crashes have accounted for the highest number of patients, with the workload causing crewing challenges.
We expect to do maybe 2 jobs a day, but the current rate, we're working on 4 to 5 jobs every day at the moment. We've actually got to the point now where we're having to call our standby crews in on a regular basis.
A 3-time world champion in the 505 class, Darren Nicholson wasn't too fazed his new craft was still coming together on the eve of the national championships. Contemplating what his brother Chris is about to experience is another thing. On-board movie star for the famous Around the World yacht race, the fleet left Cape Town today, headed for Melbourne via the Great Southern Ocean.
There'll be big waves, they'll be surfing them, and providing nothing goes wrong, and it's not too cold, they don't go too far south, and nothing breaks, all will be sweet.
It's the toughest leg of the event. Icebergs, sub-zero temperatures, freezing winds and big seas face competitors as they sail from the bottom of South Africa to Australia and finally to Melbourne by mid-January. And Darren can't help but enjoy the contrast.
This is nice and casual. It's 2 hours on the water, you can get off, have a beer, go for a swim. He's stuck.
In the same breath, he's not taking the 505 Nationals lightly. Most of the fleet had the jump on him today, with the invitational event providing crews with a chance to test their gear in race conditions. Starting tomorrow, the regatta will run until January 8. 2 other Australian Sailing Championships, meanwhile, conclude on the lake tomorrow. There was little hiding at Jets training today. But it was hard to lift a team that was flattened by the weekend result, a 4-1 hammering by the Central Coast.
I hope they're hurting. I know they are, they should be.
The sting may be felt in selections this week too. The coach wants to freshen up the side and has Jobe Wheelhouse and Stu Michalek in line for a return, but fitness will have the final say in the starting 11. Richard Johnson is rated 50-50 after his ankle injury, while striker Ante Milicic is still on ice after straining a calf muscle before Christmas.
I'll be disappointed if Ante's not fit, to be honest. Jono's got a chance. He's a tough Newcastle boy, and it gives him a better chance than maybe some.
Mateo Cordobo has no chance of avoiding a 2-week suspension after being sent off for the second time this season. His coach, convinced the tough Uruguayan's reputation doesn't help his cause.
And without wanting to get in trouble with FFA or the Referees Association, I think neither red card were warranted. I thought the decision on Saturday was an absolute joke.
And nobody was laughing on Saturday night. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It suits one but not the other. When cars are stopped on the Pacific Highway at Swansea, the bridge is open, linking Lake Macquarie to the ocean.
If the larger boats and the larger cruisers are moored east of the bridge, then it would minimise, I think, or at least reduce the amount of waterborne traffic.
Councillor Jenkins insists he doesn't want the bridge shut altogether, but claims a marina on the Blacksmith side of Swansea Channel would take pressure off the temperamental structure. A public-private partnership has been touted as a way of funding the project, a decision which ultimately rests with the state government.
They own the land. I can't see them spending lots of money building marinas, but equally I can't see them spending $300 million to build high-level bridges and tunnels either.
Yacht owners are sceptical and say a new marina would be more suited to game fishing boats. Even so, Councillor Jenkins says that's a start.
I've written to the member of Swansea, suggested to him he might like to take that up with the government for them to investigate.
The office of Milton Orkopoulos, member for Swansea, did not return our call today. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
The owners of the Frame Drive property lost a lifetime of sentimental belongings when the fire ripped through their timber and iron homestead yesterday, but luckily they escaped with the most precious things.
These people did everything right. They had smoke detectors, and the way the fire spread, it was within a matter of minutes, and they were able to get out, and most importantly, there were no injuries.
Investigators believe a faulty pedestal fan sparked the blaze, and with so many of us trying to find relief from the searing temperatures, it's a timely, tragic reminder of how dangerous the appliances can be. The problem with these older fans, and even the newer types, is that just like a car, they can overheat, so it's best not to leave them on for extended periods of time.
While we've had some very high temperatures and a lot of bushfires around the area, that people need to be a little bit vigilant and prepare their house for the normal everyday house fires.
That means checking smoke detectors are working, ensuring power points are not overloaded, and organising an evacuation plan, among other things. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
On his day, Aaron Trahair is easily one of the best shooters in the NBL, and of late, he's really been lighting it up for Hunter. In truth, basketball has played an important outlet for the NBL veteran, as his family copes with a serious illness.
You know, my wife and daughter have only been here for 2 games for the whole season because my wife's mum's so she's been over in Perth trying to spend as much time with her as she possibly can.
Trahair admits he struggled with it during early stages of the season, but has since turned it into a form of inspiration.
It sort of kept my head, head on my shoulders, and just makes you think of bigger things, I guess, and that basketball at the end of the day is just a game, and just treat it like that.
It certainly hasn't hurt his shooting, with some big hauls of late helping his side into 6th spot on the ladder. Saturday night's battle with Brisbane looms as a crunch game to hold down that spot, with the talent-laden Bullets aiming for the same target.
This is the 3rd game we played this year. We've won 1 each, so we need the head-to-head, so if we end up on the same win-loss at the end of the year, we'll end up on top of them.
Given Brisbane played 2 games in the lead-up to Saturday night, Trahair's now trademark early attacking raids could be all-important. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Competing out of the Belmont 16-foot sailing club, this is about as much as the field got to see of George's Rivercraft Pumpkin Eater for most of the regatta. With the field a real family affair, the leading boat was no different. Brother-sister crew of Kylie and Reese Mara had a stranglehold on the title before today's final race, but it didn't mean they stayed out of drama. Forced to make 2 penalty turns as a result, most thought it ended their chances of winning the regatta in style. But somehow they clawed their way back to beat Ram Raider and Merlin and make it 5 wins from 9 heats. Reese now backs up to contest the Australian Flying 11's regatta next week. Little has separated the top boats at the Tazar Nationals out of the Lake Macquarie Yacht Club. And the penultimate day was no different in the race to decide the title winner. World champion crew of Rob Douglas and daughter Nicole from Bateman's Bay will start the final race with a narrow lead tomorrow.
They were supposed to reinvigorate them all, but instead they ended up just like the tired shopping strip, barely patronised with lots of empty stalls. Last month we reported the Market Street markets had gone into voluntary administration. After tomorrow's administrators' meeting, we should know whether the sales on the shade structures will again be hoisted.
They'll make a determination, I understand, as to whether the markets will continue to operate or whether they will not operate.
The council invested around $450,000 into making the mall market ready, but the shade structures are actually owned by the leasing company. If the administrators decide the markets cannot trade out of their depths, the council would consider buying the remaining infrastructure off the operators, as it's of the opinion a different type of markets could be successful in the location.
In the future, I think if there's going to be markets there, they need to be structured better as far as cost of the people operating the markets are concerned, in other words their rent. There needs to be a greater variety of materials and goods, and perhaps the frequency is optimistic when you look at it weekly.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
While many were enjoying a Saturday sleep-in, the celebrations were in full swing at Raymond Terrace. The free breakfast and jazz band helped pull in the crowd, but it was the Commonwealth Games Queen's Baton Relay which they were really there to see. Dozens waited eagerly, and then it appeared right on cue at 8:20. The striking silver baton handed to 70-year-old Colin Cliff for the first leg. He was selected for his dedication to raising more than $10,000 for Westmead Children's Hospital through his long-distance charity swims.
Well, I think it's an honour. It's community spirit, and I've done this for the people of Raymond Terrace, not for myself or my family, or they were involved, but it's for the people of Raymond Terrace.
Nominated by his daughter, Colin described it as a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The baton relay made its way through the CBD, ending up in the main street, and passed on to another well-known local, Changi prisoner of war and Burma Railway survivor, 85-year-old Bart Richardson. He lapped up the attention from the small but passionate crowd, recognition of 50 years of community involvement with Legacy, Rotary and Probus. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
When the John Singleton-backed Blue Tongue Brewery signed on with the Newcastle Knights for a multi-million-dollar deal, the Hunter Pirates hoped something may be left over for them. Well, given a good hearing by the businessman during the week, it's understood no deal will be made. Stuck without a sponsor, players have been trying not to let it affect their game. Facing 5 straight defeats and a New Zealand Breakers team finally hitting form, co-captain Ben Melmoth tried to inspire. And for the most part, it worked. But the Breakers had some plans of their own. Import Brian Green showing his side all the signs they wanted to see at the start of the season. Although relying on too few scorers, Hunter still had 3 players break into the 20s as they kept pace until three-quarter time. That's when New Zealand really stepped it up a gear. They bombed away to great effect, running out 116 to 98-point winners. Just their second victory on the road all year.
We lost every quarter tonight, so obviously we didn't deserve to win at all.